Today, I am telling you 3 NFL draft prospects that I do not want the Saints to draft. I am drawing a line through these guys, and I'm going to explain why. So we've been seeing mock drafts left, right, and center. Okay, and a few of these hombres keep getting mocked to the Saints. And every time I see it, I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. Why is this guy mocked here? And I think it's kind of an easy way out. And I want to make this very clear that I think all 3 of these guys would be nightmare selections for the Saints. Now, the Saints have a very interesting draft board because dependent on who is there, the Saints can go a bunch of different directions, which I would like all of those directions. Ashton Jeanty would love that direction. Mason Graham would love that direction. Jalen Walker would love it. Jod Campbell would love it. Ted McMillan, you could talk me into it. Okay, there's a lot of players there, right? Shedeur Sanders even, you could talk me into it. There are Tyler Warren you could talk me into. You cannot talk me into the following 3 players: Will Johnson, Jahdae Baron, and Shamar Stewart. We're going to talk about each one of those. I'm going to give you some golden tidbits of why they would be whoopsie poopsies in the NFL draft. We're going to start off with Will Johnson. Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. Okay, so 2023, Will Johnson had his big season. That's when we saw Michigan win the national championship. Will Johnson was the man. Very good stuff, okay? Last year, Johnson gets hurt, doesn't play the back half of the season, so not a lot to look at as far as his tape from 2024. So you're wholly dependent on his tape from 2023. Will Johnson is also dealing with an injury. Now, he ain't dealing with, well, he is dealing with a strained hamstring, but he's dealing with turf toe. All right, now turf toe is an injury that is absolutely concerning when it comes to a prospect. That is not something you just put ice on. That is not something you just stretch out and it'll get better. That is something that can linger. That is something that can really mess you up, especially when you're a DB. Now, Will Johnson is not particularly fast as a defensive back. He runs somewhere around a 4.4, 4.5. Okay, so you've got a slower defensive back coming off of an injury who doesn't have a lot of tape. Now, a lot of that, to me, is a lot of variability, a lot of volatility, a lot of what-ifs, and a lot of question marks. I don't want that in a top 10 pick. I don't want that in the 9th overall pick. Throw into the fact that cornerback is the highest volatility position in the NFL. Cornerback is very similar to baseball, where in baseball, the old saying is if you fail 7 out of 10 times, you'll go in the Hall of Fame because you're hitting 300, right? So in baseball, you understand you will fail. Cornerback is the same exact way. Cornerback, you can be the greatest cornerback in the NFL one year. You can be the worst cornerback in the NFL next year. It can even go to a game-to-game basis. It can even go to a play-to-play basis, all right? So a good example of this is Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore was the Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 for the New England Patriots. 2 years later, he was traded for a 6th-round pick. Okay? 2 years. Now imagine a quarterback or a running back who wins MVP being traded 2 years later for a 6th-round pick. If we look at the NFL cornerback grades from last year, so these are who were the best cornerbacks in the NFL last year. We can't do this with Cooper DeJean. He's only played 1 year. But if you look at someone like Garrett Williams, he's the 3rd-rated cornerback in the NFL for 2024. Let's see how he did in 2023. Let's see some of that volatility. Now, we could look at his defensive, or we could look at his game log. We could look at all of that. Let's just look at the overall grade. There's 82 last year. 2023, 56. It shows you that super, super volatile attributes for cornerbacks. And it's not just Garrett Williams. Let's look at someone else here. So let's look at Patrick Surtain. So Patrick Surtain, Defensive Player of the Year this year. Let's look at his overall grade. So last year, 85.6. 2023, 69. Cheeky. 2022, back up to 86.8. 2021 is rookie year, 66.1. Okay, so the Defensive Player of the Year, Patrick Surtain, highly, highly volatile. All right, so Will Johnson, would he be a good player? Potentially. A lot of injury concerns, long speed concerns for an outside cornerback, which is assuming what he would be. you got to be really, really concerned about that. That on the outside, is he going to get beat by double moves? Will Johnson's a guy where you're going to have to win by anticipating because your speed isn't good enough to recover. A lot of question marks. He's also not a great tackler and major injury concerns. I'm out on Will Johnson. Next up, Jad A Baron. Okay, Jad A Baron, the cornerback out of Texas. Now, we just talked about this. The volatility of defensive backs. They come inherently with question marks, something you don't want in a top 10 pick, right? Now, the Jad A Baron problem is that he's way faster than Will Johnson. Okay, runs a 4.39, call it. Jad A Baron is a slot zone cornerback. Primarily plays zone. Primarily plays in the slot. Okay. Now, what is the problem with that? With the Saints? Is that's all the Saints have. Kool-Aid McKinstry is the exact comp for Jad A Baron. Okay. So Jad A, even though he is certainly better, okay, certainly better, I would say, than Will Johnson, as just an overall defensive back prospect, he does what we already have. So do you want that, right? Do you just want to stack slot corners? If the Saints are drafting a corner, you would assume they're drafting one to be an outside corner, to be that number one shutdown corner guy, not a zone slot corner. So he kind of does what we already have. Is that worth a 9th overall pick? And then, of course, all that volatility stuff goes in there as well. Shamar Stewart is number 3. Shamar Stewart is a athletic freak. Okay, he had a perfect RAS score. He had a perfect combine, 10.0 on the RAS. He is an athletic monster. The problem is we are not drafting for the Olympics. We are drafting for the NFL. And when it comes to football, he's not very good at that. He has produced not at all when it comes to football. So if the Saints don't play football and the Saints instead just turn into a CrossFit gym, Shamar Stewart would be awesome. Shamar Stewart would be great if we got points for the broad jump, or if we got points for the 40, or if we got points for the 3-cone drill. If they took all the football aspects out, he'd be really good at that. Shamar Stewart, 6'5", 267, incredibly raw edge player. Shamar is exactly the type of player that the New Orleans Saints would have taken over the last couple of years with Dennis Allen. And we've seen how that's worked out. What the Saints need is someone who can come in right effing now, be good, contribute, dominate. Shamar Stewart is not that guy. Shamar Stewart is a development guy with a lot of question marks when it comes to the football field. We take a look at some of this. This is from Brett Coleman. I quote tweeted this, but Shamar Stewart faced Will Campbell, LSU versus A&M. He had 8 pass rush reps against him and went 0 for 8. All right, Will Campbell, NFL level player, certainly not an all-pro NFL level player. We don't think so at this point. But again, to get absolutely shut out, to get stifled is something else. When lined up as a 5 technique or wider, you're wondering what a 5 technique is. It's okay. You don't have to type in the comments. I'll tell you. You don't have to tell anybody that you didn't know. It's okay. 5 tech means that you're just outside of the tackle. You're just on the outside shoulder of the offensive tackle. That's all it is. Okay, so imagine prototypical edge rushing off of the outside shoulder, either side or wider. All right, as a 5, which is we assume where he would be. 35th in this draft class in pass rush win rate. Okay, not good. Not good at all, which matches up with the fact that he had 1.5 sacks for the last couple of seasons. Okay, so 0 production from Shamar Stewart. Bran Duffy. Going through my Shamar Stewart notes this morning, his lack of production is not just a pass game issue. 21 career run stops on 575 run defense snaps, which gives him a run stop rate of 3.7%. That would rank 203rd out of 204 charted edges drafted in the last decade. Okay, So we've got a guy. Let's talk about Shamar Stewart. So now we have a guy who had 1.5 sacks last year, who is 35th as a 5 or wider in pass rush win rate in this draft class, who's got a 3.7 run stop rate, which ranks him 203rd out of 204 drafted edges in the last decade. And we have people who are saying to take this guy at 9th overall because of his broad jump. Wake up! Okay? All these guys are either raw, developmental, injury concerns, or play a position that is highly volatile within itself. None of those things are what you want the Saints to draft. If you look at edge, Saints have Carl Granderson and Chase Young. We're chilling. If you look at defensive back, Kool-Aid, Lante Taylor, Isaac Adams, say what you want, but the straight line to starting, the straight line to impact for DBs, edge even, really isn't there. Think about how good Will Johnson and Jahdae Baron would have to be to validate a 9th overall pick. And then I ask you, if they are good, what is your confidence that they can be that good for a long period of time? We just saw how volatile cornerback is with some of the best cornerbacks in the NFL last year. We saw how volatile it was for Defensive Player of the Year, Stephon Gilmore. Okay, so I'm out on that. That's not to say that Shamar Stewart can't figure it out. That's not to say that Jahdae Baron can't find a spot or Will Johnson can't find a spot or whatever. But where the Saints are, they do not bring the attributes that I want. They have too many question marks, too many concerns, too much variability. Saints don't need that right now. The Saints need players that have a straight line to starting, players like Mason Graham, or a straight line to severe impact, like Ashton Genty, like Tyler Warren, even like Ted McMillan, depending on how you feel about him, or Matthew Golden, whoever wide receiver one ends up being. Okay, so when I look at players that I want the Saints to draft, that is what I'm looking for. The least amount of question marks, the highest immediate impact, and a position that is important on the field. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways the Saints can go here. These guys keep getting mocked, and I'll kind of finish up with this. I think the reason they are getting mocked to the Saints is because they're easy players to mock, because it's like, yeah, Jahdae Baron's good, so just throw him there. There's no real risk to the pick. There's no real, as far as like someone mocking it. There's obviously a risk to the pick. We just talked about that. But someone mocking it, no one's going to be like, oh, my God, I can't believe you took Jahdae Baron at 9. Oh, my God, I can't believe you took Will Johnson at 9. Oh, my God, I can't believe you took Shamar Stewart at 9. So it's like, it's just a whatever, kind of toss it to the wall, throw it in there, mock it, and move on. All right, that's why I think they keep getting mocked to the Saints, because I think it is the pick that you can do with the least amount of reasoning. You can just say, oh, Will Johnson, look at this pick 6. This is sweet. Oh, Shamar Stewart, he has a perfect RAS score. But when you actually zoom out and look at it and look at the fit for the Saints and look what they want to do, doesn't make a lot of sense. So all out on these 3 guys, and I think you should be too. And I've seen a few comments of, I'd take Will Johnson, I'd take Jahdae Baron, I'd take Shamar Stewart. And I've commented and said, I'm all out on Johnson. I'm all out on Baron. I'm all out on Shamar Stewart. But then I thought, let me go ahead and just put it on a video, give some stats, give a little bit of reasoning why, and hopefully this gets out there. And Kellen Moore can see this, and Kellen Moore can say, I'm not drafting these guys. Get on down there in the comments below. Did you learn something today? Did you want to draft any of these guys? And now, after seeing this, are they off of your billboard? All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.